Hey JMGO N1S Ultimate, did you want to happen to watch our lectures on a 150-inch 4K screen?
Oh no, I don't want that.
Oh, what a bummer. Would you happen to want to play PlayStation 5 Pro games instead?
Oh yeah.
Alright, that sounds like a wonderful plan. Projectors are honestly getting extremely small and incredibly powerful all at the same time, and it legitimately has me wondering where else they might go from here. This is the N1S Ultimate by JMGO, which I've been lucky enough to get to know over the last couple weeks, and getting my hands on this also happens to line up perfectly with the release of the PlayStation 5 Pro. With the new enhanced PlayStation 5 Pro game updates and an emphasis on an incredible 4K 60Hz gaming experience, N1S Ultimate has been a perfect companion to test gaming alongside a ton of media. Now, as somebody who loves a good console gaming experience, this really does dial it in for me, so here's a review of the JMGO N1S Ultimate from a tired dad who loves to game and watch anime. Huge thanks to JMGO for sending this my way for review. I will have all of this and everything else in my setup linked down below in the video description. Now, the first thing that particularly makes this projector a little bit special is probably going to be their Malk triple laser optics engine, but honestly, as somebody who's less technical when it comes down to both my tech and reviews, JMGO's Malk engine pretty much just makes any image displayed vibrant and true to life. I will definitely go more into depth on the image side of things alongside some specs, but for me, I just dig this since pretty much everything out of box looks good and I don't really need to fuss with anything. The second thing that makes this special for me at least is the fact that it's just probably the most versatile projector I've ever used, especially when it comes down to any sort of adjustability. Plain and simple, the 360-degree gimbal really does let me put this almost anywhere I might want, which I do appreciate. It does also have a 135-degree vertical tilt, which is pretty sweet if you do want to project anything up on a ceiling if you want to. For me though, it does just come down to the ease of adjustability, especially with the autofocus and auto keystoning, which I will touch on as well. Lastly, what makes this projector special for me more personally is what I already mentioned, is the fact that it pairs incredibly well with the PlayStation 5 Pro, which just launched. As mentioned, I will talk more about each of the specs on this projector, but I will leave a pop-up here if you are interested at seeing the specs at a glance. Now, as somebody who loves gaming on both PC and console, it is nice to have a bump in fidelity to my gaming image and throwing it up on a massive 100-inch screen, which is simply amazing. This projector can jump all the way up to 180 degrees if you have room for that size, but for me, in my space, I'm working with something between 100 to 120 inches of wall space. I'll show a pop-up here for different screen size setups you might want as well. Now, while a lot of projectors don't particularly offer a good gaming experience due to input lag, it's pretty much non-existent on this projector. In its dedicated game mode at least, the spec sheet shows me a response time of 15 milliseconds, which is even low enough for FPS games in my opinion. Will you be pushing any sort of competitive ranks on a projector? No, probably not if I'm all honest, but still, it's definitely good enough for any sort of FPS games. In terms of image quality, I will jump into the media side of things shortly, but as for how well games look and perform, it's easy to say this will be one of the best looking options for HDR games. On the PlayStation 5 Pro at least, throwing down games at a capped 60Hz and 4K in HDR works incredibly well, and there's actually more room here than I thought there'd be in terms of the HDR range and adjustability. And naturally, all of this won't make me a better gamer, but it does still look awesome. In the PlayStation 5 Pro enhanced titles like Spider-Man or The Last of Us, it's simply one of those things you've just got to see for yourself in person, since a YouTube video doesn't really seem to cut it justice. Cinematic titles like this really do showcase how well this projector does as well. This underground garage scene in The Last of Us is a tough scenario to project, but this actually handled it pretty well between both the shadows and highlights of my flashlight, and I'm pretty surprised with how it looked. Likewise, jumping into games like Cyberpunk is an easy way to flex the HDR capabilities of both this projector and console, and honestly, again, this looks incredible to me. What does add to the experience as well is the 20-watt speaker setup, which simply booms in my space. I don't think I've gone any higher than about 50% volume, and my entire area was filled with sound. And it's obviously easy to say the audio side of things led incredibly well to any sort of media you might be watching, which is also the other aspect of this projector I had the pleasure of testing. Even aside from movies and shows, I've actually just used this projector over the last couple weeks simply for music while working, since A, it's cozy and looks awesome on my wall, and B, it obviously sounds incredible while working. As for actually watching shows and movies, the triple laser setup here gives me so much headroom in terms of brightness, getting all the way up to a peak 3500 ANSI lumens. From a color standpoint, this does have 110% BT 2020 coverage, which easily makes things pop for both media and gaming. I think what does it for me though is the 1600:1 static contrast ratio, which really does help for scenes with huge amounts of shadows and highlights all at once, which again is similar to that one scene in The Last of Us I was playing. Since this does have HDR10 support as well, any HDR content on here will look awesome, and one of my go-tos to test this out is always this one scene in John Wick. This guy is absolutely ballistic, honestly. I think I'm due for a full rewatch. But getting back to JMGO's Malk engine, to make it short and sweet, it pretty much makes every single scene you might want to watch clearer and more vibrant, which again does go perfectly in hand with whatever movies I'm watching or whatever game I'm playing. Likewise, if you do want to tune your image to your personal liking, you definitely can. For me, again, as a bit of a normie, that's a little bit over my head to be honest, but I particularly just love using the profile presets for whatever I'm doing, whether it's games, movies, or whatever else. I will say, surprisingly, this does pretty well on a wall with a lot of ambient light, especially during the daytime, which is pretty sweet considering my kids absolutely love this during the daytime, and it worked really well in our living room. Naturally though, the best image will be in a dark room. Of course, kids being kids, they will try to blind themselves with bright lights, so I will say I'm grateful for the eye comfort feature here, which can sense if something's in the way and cut the laser for eye safety. I've also had the pleasure of watching a good mix of my favorite content creators on YouTube, alongside movies and shows across the built-in Netflix, Disney Plus, and Amazon Prime apps. I'm finally working my way through the second season of Invincible, as well as Dragon Ball Daima, and finally Goku actually did something in the 4th episode. Congratulations. From a cinema standpoint though, this projector covers media well, and so far it's just been a great experience overall. Now, as for the feature sets on this projector particularly, this does have some of the best autofocus and auto keystoning I've ever used, and it all adds together with the gimbal setup. Legitimately, regardless of where I place it, how I rotate it, how I angle it vertically, this projector just snaps right into a sharp image right off the bat. With that as well, say you don't have a massive screen or wall to work with, you can actually zoom your image to be smaller and fit tighter spaces, which is always one of my favorite features when it comes down to any sort of projectors like this. Depending on the color shade of your wall as well, you can always auto-calibrate your image so that it displays better on whatever wall you're using. Of course, the closer to white your wall paint is, the better. As for the Google TV on this projector, there's practically no better built-in solution, whether it be a TV, projector, or any sort of monitor. Google TV is one of the few licensed solutions that actually has Netflix built right into the projector itself right out of box, which is frequently a pain point when it comes to any sort of turnkey entertainment. In this case at least, you have access to a massive array of apps you might want, like Netflix, the Disney Plus, Prime, Apple TV, Crunchyroll, and more of course. The Google TV UI as well is pretty snappy and minimal without any sort of massively overbearing ads, apart from some suggested content. What adds to this experience as well is probably the remote, which also has Google Voice integration. Play me some Blink-182 on Spotify.
Asking Spotify to play Blink-182.
Alongside volume controls and some shortcuts to YouTube, Netflix, and Amazon Prime. Now, coming in at about 10 pounds, this projector is incredibly small considering all that's packed inside this thing. It's built incredibly solid and even looks like a premium product fitting in just about anywhere in your home. I personally had it set up on an end table, a bookshelf, a dinner table, and of course on the floor projecting against the ceiling. For ports, you do have two HDMI 2.1 ports, one of which is eARC for any sort of supported controllable devices. You've got one USB-A port that you might want to use for any of your own personal content, alongside an audio jack for any sort of audio setups you might have. For buttons, there is only one singular button on the front end here, which is the power and sleep button. So you definitely want to make sure you either have the remote with you when traveling, or be sure to download the JMGO app since there's no other physical buttons on the projector. As for what you get inside the box, you've got the projector of course, which also comes in a lightweight carrying case, which you'll definitely want to hold on to if you're looking at bringing this projector anywhere with you. Apart from that, of course, you do have the power supply and power lead, and the remote with included batteries. Now, coming in at a regular pricing of $2,399 at the time of making this video at least, this is most definitely priced as an enthusiast projector. There are some awesome Black Friday deals right now, which I will have linked down below in the video description if you do want to check it out. But between the raw specs, portability, and the incredible image, there's a lot to be had here, especially for anybody who's just into media and gaming. For me at least, it definitely comes down to the experience on my PlayStation 5 Pro, since it's just about everything I'd want to really make a good gaming session with the sheer image quality and speaker setup. But what do you guys think about this projector, and what would you watch or game on it? I appreciate you watching till the end. Till next time.